Hey everyone, Judicial Watch President Tom Fitton here with our weekly update on social media. As always, thank you for joining us. It's good to be back. I took a little bit of a vacation last week. So much has been going on. We had a major hearing in the Ashli Babbitt case. I'll talk to you about that. We received new information about the Trump assassination and new stonewalling about the Trump assassination. We've been victimized by censorship by Facebook, and a new important lawsuit on a cover-up related to COVID. It's still going on, so a lot of cover. I want to first talk, though, about the First Amendment. I want to talk about free speech, and I want to talk about election integrity. And in 2020, you may recall, social media began suppressing concerns about how the 2020 election was to be conducted. And how do I know that happened? Because it happened to me. It happened to Judicial Watch. We were censored repeatedly about election controversies. And Judicial Watch is a national expert on elections. So we know what we're talking about. And you would think, given the controversy around that censorship since then, how in the case of, for instance, the Hunter laptop, the Twitter and the big media suppressed that story, censored it, that they would be more careful this time around. Nope, it's begun again. And Judicial Watch is the victim and the target. Now, you may recall the last time I was here with you, I think it was the last time I was here with you, I talked about how we uncovered through the Local Freedom of Information Act here in the District of Columbia a list of non-citizen voters who voted in, quote, the 2024 presidential primary, the D.C. primary. Now, how did we get that information? It was on an Excel spreadsheet. So we said, give us the list of voters. They gave us the list of voters. We told them, give us the list of voters who voted in the D.C. presidential primary. They gave us that list. And they were all non-citizens. So it was 113 names. So the other day, I got an email from one of the fact-checking organizations that contract with Facebook, Lead Stories, saying, well, to give us evidence they voted in the presidential primary. And I said, well, the evidence is the document. And their feedback or pushback was, well, the D.C. Board of Elections say they didn't vote for, quote, the president part of the presidential primary. I'm like, well, that's not what the documents say. And so, all we can do is report accurately in a fair way what the documents say. Now, of course, if they actually voted in the presidential primary, as these documents seem to suggest, that could be a crime. And again, Lead Stories is arguing with us about what the document says. There's no argument what the document says. They're just saying we have to believe the spokesman who has no information, no documents that we're aware of, showing what ballots these people actually use. The suggestion is these individuals were given only local ballots because in D.C. they can, illegal aliens or non-citizens can vote in the local elections, which is outrageous as it is. And they're saying, well, just because they say they voted in the 2024 presidential primary doesn't mean they voted in the presidential primary. And of course, well, what does that have to do with whether the document is fair and accurate? Our press release about it. And so we posted this material up on Facebook, and this is what Facebook started doing to it, based on the intervention of this third-party fact-checker, which in my experience is a leftist, juvenile, unprofessional organization that basically targets conservatives in an unfair way. And here's what they said. So this is what we're getting as a notice. Independent fact-checkers reviewed the information in a post you shared and said it was missing context. Facebook added a notice to the post, and it moved it lower in feed. So what does that mean? It means if you go to our post, and I don't know if we can show what our post looks like now, it has this vandalization below. leading to this third-party left-wing site. And and as Facebook tells us, it means that story is suppressed and censored. Lower in the feed means it's not going to be shown to as many people as it otherwise would. And the press release, again, is perfectly accurate, and it's not misleading. And to say otherwise is disingenuous, dishonest, and pure politics. And here you have a case of a left-wing fact-checking organization and Facebook using as an excuse to censor information that is unhelpful to left-wing narratives because they don't want anyone to think that non-citizens are voting in any elections, let alone a presidential primary election. And a document that suggests otherwise. Now, if they give us documents that say they didn't vote in the presidential primary per se, obviously that would be interesting, but they haven't given us that. I don't think they know. But we do know we have a list that they provided saying 113 non-citizens voted in the non-presidential primary. And the evidence to the contrary is a spokesman for the government. It's absurd. The documents speak for themselves. And so now they're suppressing information about non-citizens voting in our elections. So we're fighting back as best we're able. We're not going to leave Facebook because that's where people are. I mean, they want us to leave. I mean, I'm convinced of that. The left, in the end, they'd be happy to see us leave. We're not going to leave. We're not going to be pushed around. But we are going to expose this misconduct. And let me just say something about these fact checkers. The fact-checking entities out there are one of the worst forms ethically of journalism I've ever seen. I've been doing this work since 35 years more or less, since I started, working here in Washington, D.C. And, you see the left-wing journalists and, you recognize when they're acting in a way that's dishonest and such. But the level of dishonesty, mendacity, juvenile behavior and unethical behavior associated with the fact-checking journalist community is unmatched. It really is unmatched. And it's all geared to protecting the left and targeting conservatives. Now, they'll always point to leftists that they fact check. But there's an inordinate focus on conservatives, and it's not fact checking, it's argument, it's opinion. We got a document that said non-citizens voted in the presidential primary, and they're telling us that's missing context. It's not missing context. Frankly, it's evidence of a crime. The Justice Department should investigate whether indeed they did vote in a presidential primary, as the list suggests. The D.C. government has also an obligation to investigate this. But of course, the fact checkers aren't interested in that. I mean, for instance, this fact checker, they told us, they sent me an email about their fact check that they obviously had already drawn a conclusion about a little over an hour before their deadline. And I wrote back, I said, this is just so typically unethical of the way you all operate. And of course, you said, well, do you need more time? It's like, that's not the issue. You know that's not the issue. And they know it's not the issue. So they're smearing Judicial Watch and targeting you. Because if you're on Facebook and you want to gain access to this, you're less likely to be able to gain access to it because of this suppression. So it's not only a suppression of our free speech, but it's a suppression of your free speech because you're denied access to information you might otherwise have. So you're the target of this censorship operation. So hopefully Facebook backs down. I doubt they will. But, if you want information about where our elections are going and the threat to free and fair elections from non-citizens voting, well, Facebook is not going to be a reliable place for it because they're censoring material about it. I mean, I've got government documents we're promoting on Facebook about non-citizens voting in a presidential primary, literally voting in a presidential primary. And they're telling us it's misleading. It's not misleading. The only document we have says that these folks voted in presidential primaries. Did they only get ballots that were for non-presidential offices? No documents of such has been presented to us, nor did Lead Stories, the so-called Facebook fact checker, promote anyone or give them a report on any of them. So there you have it. So be warned, as we come up on the election, the lefties are going to be going after the truth and trying to suppress the truth about election integrity concerns. So last week we had an important federal court hearing in the $30 million wrongful death lawsuit that Judicial Watch filed on behalf of Ashli Babbitt's estate and her family. And it was filed against the federal government, initially filed out in San Diego, California. The Biden administration didn't want the case to proceed out there, and they successfully, at least for now, have moved it to here in Washington, D.C. And the federal court judge who was assigned this case had a hearing about it last week. And let me give you the details. We're still fighting and potentially going to appeal the removal of the case to Washington, D.C. for a variety of reasons. But as importantly, I'll leave it to the lawyers to say whether it's more importantly, but as importantly, at least from my perspective, is the court ordered the Biden administration to answer Ashli's core complaint in a few weeks, meaning by September 6th. And here's the let me get to the press release to get the detail here. So the hearing was August 6th, and the judge gave the government 30 days, so it is September 6th. Let me give you the specifics on it first. Hold on one second. The Justice Department must respond to this lawsuit's claims for wrongful death, assault and battery, negligence, and a claim for survival action under federal law. And so what happened is the government wants to answer those claims, and so now the case is going to proceed. Now, there are other claims that may be subject to dismissal, so there'll be fights over that. But here, they're going to have to provide an answer, and I think we're going to proceed to discovery, or at least I hope that's the case. I mean, I know enough about civil litigation as a non-lawyer to know that nothing's ever certain. So in the ordinary course, I suspect we'd get discovery, but the government may seek to short-circuit that. But to me, it's great news for justice. It's great news for the family of Ashli Babbitt. They finally got their day in court, a day that the Biden administration has tried to basically stop and delay. And now they're going to get more answers and more accountability for what happened to Ashli that day. And as you recall, she was shot for no good reason by then Lieutenant Michael Byrd of the U.S. Capitol Police. Here is the video of her being killed that day. I can't believe he shot her. I just can't believe it. Just popped out there, really ambushed her and shot her as she was crawling through that window. I mean, $30 million, some might argue that's not enough for what happened to her. Babbitt, 35, owned and operated a successful pool business with her husband, Aaron. She traveled alone from San Diego to Washington to attend the Women's America First rally on January 6th. And as our complaint reads, the shooting occurred at the east entrance of the speaker's lobby. After demonstrators filled the hallway outside the lobby, two individuals in the crowded, tightly packed hallway struck and dislodged the glass panels in the lobby doors and the right door side light. Lieutenant Byrd, who is a United States Capitol Police commander and was the incident commander for the house on January 6, 2021, shot Ashli on sight as she raised herself up into the opening of the right door side light. Byrd later confessed that he shot Ashli before seeing her hands or assessing her intentions or even identifying her as a female. Ashli was unarmed, her hands were up in the air, empty and in plain view as Byrd and other officers, plain view of Byrd and the other officers in the lobby. As one witness said, "You murdered her." We highlight that in the complaint. And Byrd, of course, has been given special treatment by the Justice Department, the the D.C. Police, and of course the U.S. Capitol Police. He suffered no consequences administratively. He wasn't even seriously investigated. No grand jury investigation, as best we can tell. He didn't really fully cooperate with the investigation, such as it was, into Ashli's death. Ashli was the only official homicide victim that day. Yes, I know there were other protesters who were killed that day or died that day, and some have alleged, for instance, that Ms. Boyland was a homicide victim. But, I mean, I'm not arguing that. For purposes of this discussion, though, Ashli is the only official homicide victim determined to have been shot and killed by Lieutenant Byrd. And now the Justice Department, the Biden administration, despite their best efforts and their refusal to come to grips with what Byrd did, and frankly Congress's refusal to come to grips with what Byrd did, is going to have to answer in a few weeks. So this is great work by Judicial Watch's lawyers, and I know the family is thrilled to death that this case is proceeding because justice has been a long time coming. Ashli Babbitt's family, as I say, is thrilled. The $30 million wrongful death lawsuit for her outrageous killing is moving full speed ahead. So as events warrant, and we'll see what the government says, maybe I'll come back here and talk to you about it. But pray for justice for Ashli, and you can be sure Judicial Watch will continue to do everything we can to provide justice for Ashli and vindicate her memory. So I was commenting, I think I was on Maria's bottle, who was I? I think I was on Maria's show, Fox Business, and I made the point here. It's amazing what this corrupt city wants us to do. They just want us to pretend that all these terrible things and acts of corruption that happened simply don't matter anymore, and that we're all supposed to move along. I mean, for example, there was new information released by the New York Times. They were stonewalled by their own admission by the State Department that confirmed criminality and lies by Joe and Hunter Biden. I commented on it the other day from the Metro. Hey, in case you missed it, President Trump was again vindicated when news broke that Hunter Biden solicited help from the Obama-Biden administration for Burisma. The State Department, the corrupt State Department, finally released the documents this week to the New York Times. They've been asking for them for years. Further vindication that Trump was right to pursue Burisma corruption as it related to the Bidens, and how the coup against him, the impeachment against him, was so corrupt and dishonest, obviously designed to protect Biden from accountability. And of course, this city is so corrupt. Obviously, Obama knew about this corruption as well, and they all need to be held fully accountable. It's not too late. Yeah, and this is what I tweeted about it, referencing the New York Times story. So he asked the State Department, I think it was the U.S. Embassy in Italy, for help in setting up meetings for Burisma. And even, go back to that tweet, even the New York Times admitted, this is their language, after President Biden dropped his re-election bid, his administration released records showing that while he was vice president, his son solicited U.S. government assistance. And as I highlight parenthetically, the Obama gang knew all about Biden corruption. I've highlighted previously to you before how the State Department knew full well what Hunter Biden was up to with Burisma. We had uncovered documents, actually it's now 2 or 3 years ago, showing that the State Department and the Ukraine embassy understood that Biden had a corruption problem with, or at least the appearance of a corruption problem with Hunter's role in the Burisma board, a controversial Ukrainian company that was under investigation for corruption. And what happened is the ambassador, Yovanovitch, remember her, the anti-Trump ambassador, was communicating with another State Department official, and that other official said, hey, look, Biden is going, and he went to Ukraine just before Trump came into office in 2021, and the Russians were, and he was supposedly on an anti-corruption mission, and the Russians were mocking him in Russian-controlled media or aligned media, saying that it's basically Joe Biden's son, Hunter, his involvement in Burisma makes his opposition to corruption in Ukraine a sick joke. And according to the State Department document, they said the Russians were trolling the administration, the Obama administration, and they said Burisma was the gift that kept on giving. So all of the Obama people knew that there was this corruption issue with Joe and Hunter. And when Trump brought it up, they impeached him for it because they wanted to cover for not only Joe and Hunter, but Obama, because he allowed this corruption to fester under his watch as his top people tried to manage Hunter's leveraging of Joe Biden's public office for private gain. And so now we have this further confirmation from the State Department that they covered up for years that Hunter was doing exactly what we were told never happened, which was lobbying the federal government while his father was vice president for help for his company. And we have all been told those were lies, but in fact, that was the truth. And we have new information coming out from the corrupt Justice Department investigation of Hunter that was curtailed and restricted in a way to protect Hunter and Joe from full accountability for this foreign bribery scandal, that Hunter was doing this repeatedly with other countries, including Romania, for example. And his work for Burisma with Italy and lobbying the U.S. government, those are other bribery issues, or what they call the Foreign Agents Registration Act, that weren't pursued by this corrupted Justice Department. They let the statute of limitations lapse. So it's good there's something going on, but the only reason anything's going on against Hunter Biden, whether it be those gun charges that he was convicted of or the tax charges he's currently facing, is because their corrupt scheme to shuffle it all away through a sweetheart plea agreement was blown up by a federal court judge in Delaware who asked some intemperate questions. I shouldn't say intemperate because they were really basic. And the whole thing collapsed under the weight of its own corruption. And so they were kind of forced to do these bare minimum of indictments against Hunter. So what did Kamala Harris know? When did she know it about Burisma? You know, these are the sorts of questions that I have. I understand Republicans are running, President Trump is running for president. And, you have to remember, campaigns have specific goals they need to address or try to achieve. And that often means they're not going to focus on the issues someone like me would focus on. And this is why it's important to have an independent civil society, independent groups who raise these questions because they deserve answers. Because candidates may not have the capacity to raise it, or, they're focused on something else. And that's the charitable interpretation. Some politicians never want to raise corruption issues. And this is why Judicial Watch always comes up and stands strong for the truth and accountability on these corruption issues. We don't give up on them. Even if people say, oh, you should move along. Oh, President Biden was removed through a coup from the head of the ticket for president by the Democratic Party. How did that happen, as I say? Who picked Kamala Harris to run for president? No one's asked that question. What about those 14, 15 million votes? They're all just been disappeared by the Democratic Party. How is that democracy? I think there are serious issues about how she became the nominee. I was just looking at records today, and I noticed all of the campaign headquarters is up in Delaware. I mean, talk about the coup. I mean, they moved into Biden's offices up in Delaware. And I know the media is complaining, and many others are complaining, that Kamala isn't wanting to talk. Why should she talk? It's perfectly consistent with a coup. I mean, Biden essentially admitted the other day, I don't think we didn't talk about it before the show, it just occurred to me now, so I don't think we had the video, that he left because of pressure from Nancy Pelosi. And then Nancy Pelosi had a video the other day, or an interview the other day, where she says the letter that Biden resigned with didn't sound like Biden. Who is running the government right now? We're supposed to forget about Biden's cognitive difficulties, his disability? I don't think we should forget it. I think we should be concerned. Every time there's a tweet, I shouldn't say every time because I don't respond to every tweet, but I often note when something comes out of the Biden White House or Joe Biden's accounts, I say whoever is running the Biden administration posted the following information. Because I don't think Joe is running the Biden administration. And those are the sorts of questions I would have for Kamala Harris. And of course, where are the Republicans in Congress, the nominally opposition party? They're on vacation for an entire, 6 weeks. So I went on vacation last week for 5 days. They're on vacation for 6 weeks. The House Republicans won't get back to Washington, D.C. until September 8th, after Labor Day. I think that's the date. How much vacation do you get? We have inflation. We have this assassination attempt crisis. We have the border invasion. We have the coup on President Biden. The obliviation, I call it obliviation. It is a word. Obliteration is the other way of putting it. Of the 15 million votes in the primary. Biden's cognitive challenge. All those issues they don't want to talk about. They want us to move along. I'm not going to move along. Judicial Watch isn't going to move along. President Trump was nearly murdered. An innocent American was murdered. 2 others seriously wounded. Hundreds, thousands of others traumatized at that assassination attempt on Trump up in Butler. It's been a month. And nothing substantively has been done in terms of holding the agencies responsible for that abject failure, that deadly failure, accountable. Other than by, frankly, Judicial Watch. As I highlighted to you recently, the Secret Service told us to go jump in a lake. They're not giving us any documents about the assassination attempt. And then the FBI just told us the other day, similarly, we're not going to get any documents. No, wait, I just dropped something. Ugh. Am I sitting in the right spot again? What?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. And so where was I before I dropped stuff? So the FBI told us they're not going to give us anything either. They said they cited FOIA Exemption 7A. So there are exemptions under the Freedom of Information Act. So what happens is, let me do a little FOIA class for you here. You file a request for documents under the Freedom of Information Act, which is a federal law, and the agency generally has 20 days to respond. And they're supposed to respond with a substantive request, substantive response in the sense that, hey, we're not going to give you any documents, or you've asked for too many. If they're not going to give you any documents, they typically are supposed to tell you why. And there are various categories of documents or information in documents they don't have to necessarily disclose to you under the law. They can cite exemptions. And one of the exemptions that's overused, abused, and a tool of the deep state to hide information they don't want the American people to see is the law enforcement exception. Information that could reasonably be expected to interfere with enforcement proceedings. So allegedly there are enforcement proceedings going on that prevent the FBI from giving us any information specifically about their coordination and communications with the FBI in the run-up to the Butler rally. So this request wasn't even post-assassination documents. This was, tell us about how you work with the Secret Service in prepping for that event. And they refused to give us any documents. So as of today, the FBI and the Secret Service have yet to release to the American people, specifically to Judicial Watch, one document under the Freedom of Information Act. So do you think they can be trusted even right now to protect the president? And I mean Biden and Trump. I mean other protectees like the former presidents. I don't think so. I mean, there was a story by Susan Crabtree the other day. She writes for Real Clear Investigations. She's been following this Secret Service story like a hawk. The President Trump was down in North Carolina this week, you may have seen. And Susan Crabtree reported, I describe it in this video here.
Incredible. Nearly a month to the day after they nearly got him killed, there's been another Secret Service security breakdown surrounding President Trump. Susan Crabtree of Real Clear Investigations reported a female agent left her post at a Trump event just before he got there, didn't tell anyone to go breastfeed her child. And she brought her family back behind the security perimeter with her without pushing them through and having the Secret Service and other security vet them. Incredible breakdown in security, again, by the Biden-Harris Secret Service. They're going to get Trump killed unless this issue is treated like the emergency it is. Now, in the meantime, Judicial Watch is seeking and demanding answers from the Secret Service and the FBI. Of course, we're getting the stonewalls on records about the assassination attempt, but Judicial Watch is prepared to go to court to get the full truth about this crisis.
Like, can you believe that? The woman brought her child, her infant child, to her posting for a presidential level event. Remember, at this, I presume, maybe not, I shouldn't, the Secret Service has heightened security for President Trump. And she thinks she can bring her infant and then her family members and just get her family members into the area, secure area, without vetting, and then leaving without telling anyone her post. I guess the commander on site was kind of doing a patrol just to see where everyone was, and he ran into her, into this office that she wasn't supposed to be in with her family. Incredible. I'd be very concerned. I said this after he was shot, obviously, because the failure was quite obvious. But they haven't fixed things at the Secret Service. A tiger doesn't change its stripes in a giant bureaucracy like that. And the FBI, that idea that there's ongoing law enforcement proceedings against whom? Or is it against who? Yeah, it's against who? And that's the excuse the Secret Service is using as well. Is there another shooter? No, they're just making this up. I'm telling you that based on experience. Under this theory, because in theory, until every question is answered, there's ongoing law enforcement proceedings. Under this way, what the Secret Services and the FBI are telling Judicial Watch, we will never see documents. And I think what they're doing is they're trying to delay the release of documents until after the election. That's obvious. But the good news is that, at the state and local level, there is some more transparency. It's a month, and the only folks who have been transparent have been folks in Butler County, the police department, and then the DA's office. They released a raft of videos and documents and pictures to us. We received this picture, for instance, of the shooter. I guess it was two pictures here from the Butler County DA in response to a FOIA request. So this picture is of, I forget his name, and I don't care what his name is at this point. The Cooks? You can Crooks. They're close enough to see his phone. And that picture has been previously published, but we just received that officially from the government. So people are just, gobsmacked by how close law enforcement was to this kid, and yet he was still able to kill an innocent American. Remember, Trump survived, and God bless America that he did. But there's a man dead and two severely injured. And in addition to that, we received videos from the Butler County Police Department, some body cam videos, and we tried to keep it in chronological order, the videos we obtained. It includes a video of the police officer. Remember, there was one police officer who got his colleague, to kind of pop him up onto the roof, and then he saw the shooter, and he backed off or dropped or whatever. And so we got the video of that as well under the right to know law in Pennsylvania. So here's the videos that your Judicial Watch was able to uncover about the Trump assassination attempt.
Someone's on the roof.
What's up, man? Don't pull up your head, he's right there! Face! Yo, you put all puppies laying down.
Next.
I need a ladder. She's gonna fucking hold.
1305, that was relayed.
On anything.
Understood, no confirmation. They were relayed the ladder on the right-hand side, or the left-hand side, they're on the way with it.
Hold.
Used to be a vest on standby to be there as well.
Yeah, we got attack unit, and then we got a BT unit up
We've got
there.
everybody we can come and
shoot her down.
And,
Whether he's down or whether he's in custody, yes.
I'm going to try to confirm in a second.
Yes.
Okay. I need one CMS on standby.
I don't want to spread no. Is he a shooter? Did he have a weapon? Is he?
That was the report. That was a report.
1382 Butler. Anybody inside? Still security inside.
I told the Secret Service, post a fucking guy over here.
This side.
I told him that fucking at the meeting on Tuesday.
Yo, Tess, you got me up once, bro. Yo, Tess, you got me up once. Get me up again. One more. Ready? Yep. All right, ready? Let's go. 1, 2, 3. Yep.
And here's the other video. This is the video I started talking about of the officer going up. There he is. He sees the shooter, falls down, goes and runs. It's pretty dramatic stuff. And in addition, we received this material from the police department, the district attorney, detailing the local law enforcement support, which was pretty significant. Let me go. Butler Township Police Department and the U.S. Secret Service have requested our assistance at the rally. And this is an email from the Adams Township Police Department in Mars, Pennsylvania. I've had several discussions with the Secret Service, and as of today, they are requesting assistance from us with providing sniper overwatch support, counter-assault teams, and a quick reaction force. Our current plan is to provide 2 sniper elements, 2 mobile counter-assault teams, and a quick reaction force. So that was pretty significant support. Now, you know, the reports are there was a third, one of the local sniper teams shot at the shooter and frankly may have saved lives by distracting him with the shot before he was taken out by the Secret Service sniper. Now, I say that with some caveats, meaning we really still don't know what happened. I mean, there hasn't been an official report as to what happened. So we're kind of trying to piece things together. I think Congressman Clay Higgins had a special interim report he released the other day. It's online. Maybe we'll provide a link to it. Maybe I'll talk more about it in detail next week. But he talked about how the FBI mucked up the investigation, destroyed biological evidence, cleaned up the scene, didn't keep it protected. They authorized, to the surprise of virtually every local official, the cremation of the shooter's body, like within moments. I mean, incredible. There's his report. These are the key findings he made. Here, let me go here. U.S. Secret Service did not retrieve the radios that had been set aside for them by Butler County Technical Command. The radio comms were properly and perfectly arranged during extensive pre-mission planning. So they didn't have a communication stream going on as they should have. All 8 casings from the shots fired by crooks were recovered and supposedly are in the proper possession of the FBI. And these are his preliminary investigation, preliminary observations. The knife shot, this is what I was referencing, the knife shot fired from on July 13th, was from, so the shooter got 8 shots off, and as Higgins says, the knife shot fired was from a Butler SWAT operator on the ground about 100 ways from the AGR building. Shot 9 hit Crook's rifle stock and fragged his face, neck, right shoulder area from the stock breaking up. So that likely saved lives. And this isn't news to us. We heard immediately from sources that a local sniper or local officer had shot at Crooks. But it took weeks for it to be confirmed. The 10th and I believe final shot was fired from the Southern Counter Sniper Team. I think that's a Secret Service team. This is the interesting one. Another interesting point. My effort to examine Crook's body on Monday, August 5th, caused quite a stir and revealed a disturbing fact. The FBI released the body for cremation 10 days after July 13th. And I know a lot of people have questions about the water tower. He says it was cleared by a drone by the county tactical commander, ESU Commander Lenz himself. And we've read some of Lenz's emails to you. So you can see the preliminary investigative report is linked there at the bottom. It's worth reading. But thank you, Congressman Higgins, for doing your independent investigation and releasing the information as quickly as you have. So the Secret Service continues to be a mess, and they're hiding records, and it's intrepid individual members of Congress, it's Judicial Watch, independent journalists like Susan Crabtree exposing the full gamut of Secret Service incompetency, politics, and corruption. And it's a dangerous corruption. As far as I'm concerned, we are in an emergency because the Secret Service has proven itself incapable of providing necessary protection to their protectees, including President Trump. And I fear for Trump's safety. I really do. So, last but not least, for sure, is a new lawsuit we filed over another corruption issue, which is news and details and emails and testimony showing Fauci's agency was trying to hide records from the American people by ignoring and subverting and obstructing FOIA laws, and it looks like, in theory, congressional subpoenas and other subpoenas and investigators. And Judicial Watch filed a FOIA lawsuit, a very comprehensive lawsuit, and I can't go through all the details, but essentially one of Fauci's top people in the NIAID, the National Institute for Allergic and Infectious Diseases, which is a sub-agency of the of NIH, which is a sub-agency of Health and Human Services. So Morans is the former top scientific advisor to Fauci, who's now retired. And he's still working at NIH, as best I can tell, as an advisor. So the number one request, for example, is we wanted Morin's documents on Morin's soliciting help, advice, or assistance in any manner from any employee of the NIAID or NIH's Freedom of Information Act office, and we list the names of who he might have been in communication with. Then Dr. Fauci, again, we want information about his communications with the FOIA officers. Communications about withholding information from the people under FOIA. And then communications of Dr. Morin's emails that were of a private nature or on non-governmental servers with a series of individuals, including, but not limited to, Peter Daszak, Dr. Fauci. Daszak is the EcoHealth Alliance head. EcoHealth Alliance was the vehicle through which we gave money to Wuhan. and others involved in the gain of function and COVID controversies. On May 22nd, 2024, Moorens testified before the House Select Committee on the coronavirus pandemic at a hearing. And as they noted at the hearing, evidence obtained by the Select Subcommittee shows Moorens unlawfully deleted federal COVID-19 records, shared non-public information about NIH grant processes with his best friend, EcoHealth Alliance Dr. Peter Daszak, and likely lied to Congress multiple times. By the way, Daszak's operation, EcoHealth, has now been banned by the Biden administration from getting grants. The Select Subcommittee's chairman, Brad Wenstrup, wrote or commented, "We have evidence Moorens purposely evaded public transparency required by FOIA by intentionally using a personal email for official business. We have evidence Moorens unlawfully deleted government records and may have engaged with the NIH FOIA office to assist with this illegal action. We have evidence Moorens routinely acted as an intermediary between Dr. Daszak and Fauci. So was Moorens using his private emails to conduct government business between EcoHealth Alliance, the Wuhan operation or funder, subgrantee, whatever you want to call it, and Fauci? And we have evidence Moorens took affirmative steps to assist Dr. Daszak so that EcoHealth could have its grant reinstated after it was suspended under the Trump administration. And it was suspended in part because of the gain of function that they were doing that they weren't supposed to be doing, although everyone knew they were doing it. So it's just, what a cluster. Margaret Moore, who is cited in the Judicial Watch records request, seems to be the so-called FOIA lady. Moorens references a nice FOIA lady who helped him evade FOIA. As we say, she allegedly advised Moorens on how to circumvent FOIA and avoid responding to FOIA requests, including Judicial Watch's. Because Judicial Watch was the leader in using FOIA to figure out what went on with respect to COVID. Virtually everything we know about it is thanks to our FOIA requests and lawsuits. She's now retired, the Fauci agency's FOIA's public liaison, whose official responsibilities included assisting in reducing delays, increasing transparency and understanding of the status of requests and resolving disputes. Moorens wrote in 2 emails. These emails are just incredible. From around, they were on February 2021, of February 24th and February 25th of 2021. He wrote to someone, "I learned from our FOIA lady here how to make emails disappear after I am FOIA'd, but before the search starts. So I think we are all safe. Plus, I deleted most of those earlier emails after sending them to Gmail." Outrageous. He writes an email that was CC'd to Peter Daszak at EcoHealth. "I learned the tricks last year from an old friend, Marge Moore, who leads our FOIA office and also hates FOIAs." It's no surprise to me that the head of the FOIA, or one of the top officials for FOIA in a federal agency, hates FOIA. Sometimes I hate FOIA because we're always having to fight to enforce the law. So Moorens was really, it looks to me, up to no good. Evidence in possession of Select Committee suggests Moorens knowingly transmitted official records to Fauci via his personal email. If true, this raises serious questions of whether Dr. Fauci took part in a conspiracy among the highest levels of NIAID to hide official records regarding the origins of COVID-19. Evidence obtained by the Select Committee shows that Dr. Moorens deliberately obstructed the Select Subcommittee's investigation into the origins of COVID-19 to protect Dr. Fauci unlawfully deleted federal COVID-19 records, and shared non-public information about NIH grant procedures with his best friend, Dr. Daszak of EcoHealth. This Fauci, and this is what I say, the Fauci operation seems to have had contempt for the public's right to know about what exactly it was up to and knew regarding FOIA. There was obviously a systematic approach or attempt by HHS bureaucrats to circumvent FOIA requests during the COVID era, and this new lawsuit can help further undo this cover-up. And then I go at the end of the press release, we go through each and every major FOIA disclosure and lawsuit we've had. And I'm just going to count them for you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. So I'm not going to read all 21, but I want you to go look at them. Actually, I'll do you one better, because we cover a lot of it in our new book that's coming out in a few months in October. You can purchase it now. Rights and Freedoms Under Assault, judicialwatchbook.org or .com. We'll provide the link below. But that's a great way to catch up on all of our FOIA and disclosures related to Fauci, COVID, vaccines, and the cover-up of the gain-of-function scandal. But here we have new information. There we are. Rights and Freedoms in Peril, an investigative report on the left's attack on America. Comes out October 15th. But set it and forget it. Isn't that like a commercial line? The point is, buy the book now and you'll get it delivered when it comes out. You won't have to worry. I don't know where you buy your books at. Amazon, Barnes & Noble. I can't read. Oh, Audible. You have to. Audible is we got a great reader for the book if you'd like it. Audible. So those, any way you can buy the book. It's a great way to support Judicial Watch. But getting back to the substance of this segment, we caught, or at least the Congress caught, this Fauci agency in a major league cover-up of FOIA. And we kind of saw it initially because they were slow rolling the release of information. We're still fighting them for documents, by the way. And so we have a new lawsuit for accountability for Fauci. And I know Fauci's no longer in government, but it's never too late for accountability. Accountability in government and in the political world is always going to be imperfect. I know. And I share your frustration that politicians, quote, get away with it all the time. Well, sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't. And sometimes, and often they do legally, in the sense they're not prosecuted as they should be. I mean, that's one of the big breakdowns in law and order here in Washington, D.C. But sometimes there's historic accountability and political accountability, and just like accountability over time, because we get more information. So people know what they were really up to. And like, for instance, in the case of Hillary Clinton, people are rightly outraged she was never seriously investigated and or prosecuted for her various crimes. But on the other hand, as a consequence of Judicial Watch's disclosures about her emails and misconduct, she lost the presidency. Now that's rough justice, right? But it was accountability. So, you take what you can under our system. Now, Judicial Watch can't prosecute Dr. Fauci. I think he should be under criminal investigation for the fraud associated with the gain-of-function research, federal funding for which he was not supposed to authorize or allow. And it looks like there was a cover-up of all of that. In addition, it looks like he misled Congress or testified falsely to Congress about whether or not his agency actually was funding gain-of-function, and the evidence is they were. And here we have new evidence that FOIA requests federal law, and there was a conspiracy to hide information from the American people. So all of that should be subject to criminal investigation. And whether someone is prosecuted or not, I don't know. But they have to be investigated, in the least. So, as you know, Judicial Watch will do what it can to provide information for you, the American people, educate you about what the government's up to, whether it be on the near killing of Trump, Fauci's dishonesty, corruption at his agency, our work on Ashli Babbitt's case, and we've got a whole host of other litigation, lawsuits, and investigations. I jokingly say, but I'm also serious about it, is that we're investigating everything. If you're concerned about it, you can be sure that Judicial Watch is investigating it or litigating about it. We're cleaning the election rolls. We're investigating for instance, we're investigating right now the governor of Minnesota, who's part of now of the coup cabal. We've got investigations into Kamala Harris. I don't want to be called a racist because I mispronounced her name. We have our litigation to clean up the voter rolls, our litigation to stop the counting of ballots that arrive after Election Day. We have our litigation to stop reparations, illegal, unconstitutional, race-based discrimination, reparations. I just love Judicial Watch, and I hope you do too, and you should show that love with a donation to our work at judicialwatch.org, judicialwatch.org. And because with your support, not only will we do the type of work we talked about today, but more lawsuits are on the way. I'll see you here next week on the Judicial Watch Weekly Update. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and like our video down below.